Last month, I built a $2,000 PC to replace the $4,000 Mac Pro we've been using for video editing. Now, the PC, despite being half the price of the Mac Pro, offered double the performance in every single category, including video editing. So the Mac has kindly been pushed to the side, and the PC has become the center and the limelight of our operations here at Snazzy Labs, and my assistant uses that to edit most of the videos on. As a result, I've been using the Mac Pro as a secondary computer for emailing and accounting and word processing and all that other boring stuff. But it doesn't make much sense to keep a $2,500 computer that I could sell on Craigslist laying around if I'm only going to be using it for email and word processing. So we're going to sell the Mac Pro. The problem is I'm trying to think, what computer could I replace it with? I want a Mac. Mac and Windows are both great operating systems. You can like one, you can like the other. There's not a right answer. Stop fighting, okay? Windows 10 is an excellent operating system. I've really loved learning it. I still prefer Mac OS 10 simply because A, all of the software and the licenses that I've purchased over the last 10 years are for Mac OS 10. So, I don't want to have to rebuy stuff for Windows. And then secondly, it's the operating system I grew up with. So I know every nook and cranny of Mac OS 10, and Windows I'm still learning. So I'm a little bit more efficient, and I'm a little bit more of a power user on Mac OS 10. So that's what I'm using. That's what I want. The problem is that Apple doesn't offer a computer that I really want to fit my needs. The Mac Pro is too expensive. The Retina 5K iMac is beautiful, except for it's also really expensive, and I already have a pretty good monitor. Now, the MacBook Pros, despite what people will tell you, they're great laptops for, taking around campus, but as a dedicated desktop computer, they're awful. You have disconnection problems, and then when the lids close, they overheat and the fans are loud. It's just not good if you want a quiet office PC. Not to mention, again, those are very expensive. So that leaves us with the Mac Mini. The problem with the Mac Mini is that it offers very low performance to price ratio. And the $1,300 Mac Mini is the only one that I would really pick up and buy. And for $1,300, it's insultingly weak. It's not very powerful. And so I figured, well, I'll just build a Mac Mini of my own. So I'm going to build a PC that runs Mac OS 10. There are 3 requirements for this build. 1, it needs to run Mac OS 10, so it will be a Hackintosh. 2, and this is not practical, PC Master Race people, just calm your horses. It's not gonna have a graphics card. I'm gonna use integrated graphics. The goal of the second one is to make it as absolutely small as possible. And the third goal is to make it absolutely silent. So there it is. Needs to run a Mac OS 10, super small, super silent. And then if I can make it really pretty, that's a bonus. Let's get started. In recent years, Apple's been using more off-the-shelf hardware, which is fantastic news because that means that Hackintosh builds have a higher likelihood of being 100% compatible. And I'm happy to report that my build is golden. Everything works. I use the Gigabyte H170 board, which has great reviews for Hackintosh builds, and it even features USB-C, which is kind of neat. Now, I did have to switch the Wi-Fi chip out with a Broadcom one, and you'll have to do this with any Hackintosh build because that's the chip that Apple uses in all of their computers. If you don't have that chip, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and then a lot of services like iMessage and Handoff won't work very well. Luckily, I was able to get mine from Dell for just $18. Now, the CPU I went for was the Intel Skylake i5-6500. It's a quad-core 3.2 gigahertz processor and isn't the fastest Skylake processor by any means, but is more than what I'd need for this tiny little build. And then I went with the Noctua L9i cooler that's a very slim profile and very, very quiet, with 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM from Crucial. Now, the last thing that I should mention is this 160 watt power supply. It's a Pico PSU. And I was a little bit nervous about this, but I am blown away by the performance. 160 watts of continual power, up to 200 watts of peak loadage, and it works fantastic. I haven't had any issues, even benchmarking and stress testing this machine as much as I can. The inside's not going to get any awards for pretty builds, but I think the outside looks pretty remarkable. The case I used was the Streacom W1C. It was only $89. It's built out of aluminum, and even though it's about twice as tall as the Mac Mini, it's pretty darn close. And I accomplished my goals for this build. It looks fantastic, it's very small, it has super high performance, it runs Mac OS 10 like a breeze. An installation guide and all of the parts, by the way, are listed in the video description below if you want to build one of these yourself. And I just cannot be more happy with the performance of this little machine. Let's talk about benchmarks, because that's something that you're going to want to know. I should mention that everything works, everything including handoff and continuity and even iMessage works perfectly. I mean, this is a golden build. Every single thing works. Nothing doesn't work. It's fantastic. Now, benchmarks, look at these. That is phenomenal. The performance, I mean, I was expecting it a little, but I was blown away that the performance was more than 2 times better than the Mac Mini. 2 times better than the fully loaded $1,300 Mac Mini. And how much did my build cost? $682. I'll be posting another video next week with some more detailed benchmarks once I've really dialed this system into its maximum performance, but I am absolutely blown away. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, rate, comment, and as always, stay snazzy.